Welcome to the first episode of the Positive Star Wars YouTubers. First, we'll be going through the shoutouts of the week on Twitter. On Monday, I promoted the Star Wars Refuge, a really great channel that uploads about 4 times a week with some great quality content. They have podcasts, video game live streams, reviews of the latest Canon material, and great insightful editorial pieces. Really, you should subscribe to them immediately. If you are still on the fence about it, YodaBauer, which is one half of the Star Wars Refuge, talks Star Wars canon with me later in the video. The next person I gave a shout out to on Tuesday is Bosk's Bounty, who makes some quality action figure reviews, videos covering the latest figures coming out, and of course toy hauls. He recently is celebrating getting 500 subs, but no doubt we can help raise that count. On Wednesday, I shouted out John Barry. Although John does do more than just Star Wars reviews, he covers animated shows and movies as well, but his Star Wars content is really great. Making speculation videos, canon book reviews, reviews on LEGO builds, and even plays Battlefront 2. Really quite diverse. And finally, on Thursday, I gave a shout out to the great Kyle Katarn, who focuses on Star Wars related reaction videos. To the latest episodes of Resistance, classics like the Clone Wars micro-series, reviews on the latest Star Wars comics, and of course reactions to the best of the best Star Wars fan films. Please check out all these channels, and next up is an interview with YodaBauer of the Star Wars Refuge YouTube channel. Hey there everybody, welcome to the Positive Star Wars YouTubers interview, which this is our first time doing it, and our first interview is with my good friend YodaBauer, or as I like to call her, YB. Hi there, YB.
Hello, how are you today?
Doing pretty good. So this is the first interview, and I'm really happy to have you on, because you've been helping out a lot, and with the PSWYT brand. Mm-hmm. I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, I'm so glad that you got it going. I was thrilled when I saw your Twitter account for the first time, and I was like, this is exactly the type of thing the community needed, and I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I've talked about it before on this channel about just how I feel about the current state of Star Wars YouTube, and I just wanted to do something more for that, and to help spread awareness of some really great channels like yours, your really amazing channel that is just, really freaking awesome.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. So, to talk about your channel, you cover a wide variety of topics, anything from speculation on the Force, speculation on, future installments like episode 9, or even just reviewing canon, mm-hmm. which those are one of my favorite kinds of videos, because I try to absorb everything canon when it comes to Star Wars, but it's very difficult when there's always something new coming out,
right?
And it hurts the wallet, you know what I mean?
Yes, it does.
But from I do have a pretty good collection of canon, but we're getting a lot on the way over in 2019. Mm-hmm. Is there anything specifically you're excited for?
Oh, I feel like it's a shorter list for what I'm not.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
the big obvious one is episode 9. I don't think that even needs explanation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm really excited for the streaming service TV shows with The Mandalorian and Cassian Andor, the TV series yet unnamed. But I think the thing I'm the most excited about is probably the return of the Clone Wars. I lost my mind when I heard it was coming back. For a long time, it's not that I can't let go of the series. Like, all TV shows end. I've had some shows that meant a lot to me, and it's a process you go through. But Clone Wars was just ended when it didn't deserve to end, and it had so much more to tell. And it as near as I can tell, it was ended over just a licensing issue. And to know that it's coming back and it's going to let it finish the most important stories means a lot to me. And the Clone Wars in general means a lot. And I don't like the whole, like, is Clone Wars or Rebels or Resistance better? Because I don't know that discourse is the most productive. But Clone Wars will always have a special place in my heart because it was the first time we got Star Wars after we weren't supposed to get Star Wars anymore. Like, I knew what it felt like to sit there and watch the credits roll on Revenge of the Sith and think we were done. And then Clone Wars came out, and I was so happy. I didn't, as much as it bothered me, I didn't care about Sky Guy and Snips and R2E because I was just so happy to see more Star Wars on the screen. And now to see how much that show has been embraced by the community, oh man, 10 years later, it's really exciting for me to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I freaked out upon upon seeing that video. And when was it? Was that during Celebration that it was announced?
I thought it might have been Comic-Con.
Okay, Comic-Con.
I think it was Comic-Con.
I just remember being rewatching that video 1,000 times over because of how excited I was. The Clone Wars was a huge part for me too. It isn't exactly what made me a Star Wars fan. That actually goes to the previous incarnation of the Clone Wars miniseries. But once I saw the Clone Wars 2008 series, that really cemented me into the lore of Star Wars. I'd say it got me really curious as to the lore of it all, and it was just awesome to be able to go home after school and be able to watch Star Wars, once a week, something new. The Clone Wars will also have a place in my heart for that. So yeah, the Clone Wars, really big one, really huge. The Mandalorian, oh my god, we know hardly anything about the Mandalorian outside of a few production shots and production stills and stuff that they've been sharing with us, but I really have no idea what it can even be about.
Right.
Do you have any speculation or anywhere where you'd want it to go?
I mean, I think yes, but I would almost answer that in the opposite way. I think what has me the most excited about The Mandalorian, and some people might disagree with me, is I'm the most excited about it because as near as we can tell, it's not about Boba Fett. And I don't want to spit on Boba Fett, but I feel like making a Boba Fett show would be so the obvious thing to do. And it would just be like, okay, here's Boba Fett. He's going to fight a Sarlacc in the pilot, and then he's going to run around and do stuff. And that it's about a Mandalorian that we've presumably never met before, and or somebody that we just wouldn't know super well. I think it just opens the doors to so much, that it just has so much more potential because it's not tethered to someone that we know super well. But I would love to see just the nature of him, the main character, being a Mandalorian, and having that culture, but then also kind of being out on the galaxy. I would love to see the show let us see some of these kind of like ancillary groups that we've seen here and there, but don't know a whole lot about. Like, I just recently was reminded of the group called the Acolytes of the Beyond that we learn about in the Aftermath trilogy, and they're basically a group of dark side cultists that worship Darth Vader. And I would love to see like a Mandalorian get surrounded by like 15 punk kids who are all like, Vader lives, yo. And I don't know, I think something like that could be really fun. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I would love to see it be a show that lets us explore these really cool corners that we've gotten to look at, but not get to know really well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I really do want from The Mandalorian is I want it, particularly since they have Dave Filoni, directing the first episode. I really wanted to tie in to a lot of things that we've heard from canon of Mandalorians, albeit from the Clone Wars, from Rebels. I would love for that stuff to be able to tie into this show in some way, even if it's a few references, even if we get to see freaking Bo-Katan,
right.
Anything like that, just to strengthen the bond between all of these TV shows, because I can already feel that people are going to really separate, like, oh, live action is where something like Mandalorian is going to go, and then animation is going to be more for Resistance kind of stories. And,
right.
Like, although those two shows are very great, or I'm sure The Mandalorian can be very great, I don't want it just to be like a wall built between these two types of mediums. I want any kind of story to be anywhere. No, yeah, the Mandalorian, it's just something that I'm extremely excited for, and I hope that they do connect in several ways like that.
Well, and I would agree, and I think what gives me hope on something like that was the Maul cameo at the end of Solo.
Oh, absolutely.
That cameo made me happy, not only just to see Maul, but it validated the animated universe they had created in a way we hadn't seen before. And that was something I was so excited about.
That was huge for Canon. That really was.
It was. And I feel like the divide on how people felt about that cameo was like people who had been ingrained in the animated universe for a while, and then the people who were like, oh, I have to watch cartoons now. And it's like, yes, you do, because they're really good, and we've been telling you that for years.
Absolutely. And that really goes into the topic that I want to discuss later, which is the hierarchy of canon. But for now, I want to cover, we were talking about, anything canon coming in 2019 that we're excited for. You know what I'm really excited for? I'm excited for the next Claudia Gray book.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray, which, for one, I love Qui-Gon. I've actually went on a Twitter thing where I'm telling people how much I love Qui-Gon. And Qui-Gon is just one of my favorite Jedis just because of how he to me is just what represents what the Jedi should have been, And he was definitely against the Order and against, not against the Order, but like he had ideals that didn't match with the Order, and he was considered kind of a renegade or, a rebel when it comes to the rest of the Jedi Order. And I really love that about him. He really, spoke for the living force and how important it was. And essentially, he's the reason why, Force ghosts are even a thing for us in the original trilogy.
Yep.
So anything revolving around Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is something that I'm really interested in. What are your thoughts on Master Apprentice? What do you think, you're excited for on that?
Oh, well, I mean, they started with Claudia Gray, who has yet to write a Star Wars novel where it just didn't feel like she was poking me in my own personal feels. I don't know how she does it. But I'm excited too. How would I put this? When I was younger, I used to read these chapter books that are now considered legends that were written by Jude Watson called Jedi Apprentice, and it was about Obi-Wan under Qui-Gon during his Padawanship or whatever you would call it. Yeah. And they were great. They were one of the first things in the expanded universe I actually read because I was so interested in the Jedi Order. And I'm sure this is not going to be like an adaptation of the legend books, but it's kind of hitting me in my nostalgia, I guess. And I'm just excited because I think she's not who I would have picked. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, if you were to say, hey, we're going to do a Qui-Gon Obi-Wan novel, who do you think would write it? And I were to think of like 4 or 5 possibilities, Claudia Gray wouldn't jump to my mind because she's like the one who writes Leia. And she's, kind of really understood this idea of like the rebellion and moving out of the rebellion. And she's been such a kind of post-Jedi kind of author in that regard too. Or post-Return of the Jedi, not post like the Jedi Order. And to take her from that to writing now, we're going to have something that is presumably before the Phantom Menace. I mean, having content that's before the Phantom Menace in general is exciting, but I just think she's such an interesting choice. Especially because her books that she's written, so it's Leia, Bloodline, Lost Stars, have been predominantly female leads, or in Lost Stars at least 50% female leads, and then to kind of give her a book where it's 2 male leads, I think it's going to bring a perspective to those characters that we might not have gotten otherwise. I just think it's such an interesting choice to pick her. And so I guess I'm excited for her interpretation of these characters.
No, absolutely. I'm still willing to bet there's a possibility that Satine shows up.
I almost don't want to hope. I want that so bad.
I really want that. And
I want that so much.
And I think Claudia Gray writing Satine could be an amazing thing, you know?
I'm not sure I'd even read it. I think I would just weep
Exactly.
and then not be able to read it, but tell everyone I did.
Oh my god, that's such Claudia Gray though. Like to be able to write a love story between Obi-Wan and Satine in the earlier years.
Oh,
that's gonna happen, right? I'm gonna be so mad if it doesn't.
If it doesn't happen, we'll just petition for her to write another one where she does that.
Exactly. So yeah, Master Apprentice, Queen's Shadow, which is another book that I'm not as invested as Master and Apprentice, but I still think I'm still very much interested. And Queen's Shadow being the Padme novel that's going to be coming.
Yeah. I can't believe that it's taken this long to get a Padme novel. Like that really confused me.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely more invested in the Qui-Gon Obi-Wan novel. And I've always liked Padme's stuff. I haven't connected to Padme as much as other characters, but this novel could easily change that. I think that's a large purpose of this novel.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for all of the super Padme fans out there who like only read Thrawn Alliances for the Padme bits to like finally get their own novel. And I think that will be really good for them. I think it's going to be, hopefully it just starts getting us more Padme content, because I mean, she's been kind of brushed over, but she's kind of important. No,
in that regard, I completely agree. The fact that we haven't gotten a lot of Padme content is, quite frankly, kind of silly. So
it is.
It's really great that we're going to be getting more of her. A lot of the episodes in the Clone Wars with her has been really great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, heck, I give her a mini comic series already. Something.
Right.
So it's really great, and I know both of those books are because it's going to be the 20th anniversary of
1999 is when Phantom Menace came out. That is so crazy.
I mean, I remember being a little kid and walking out of the Phantom Menace and just jumping around acting like Darth Maul.
I'll tell you my Phantom Menace story. It's very unlike anyone else's. I get motion sick. I can't go on roller coasters or anything. I get very nauseous, and my folks took me to see Phantom Menace, little 8-year-old YB, and we're sitting in like the center seats, in like the center, like the most center you could be, and we're watching the pod race, and I got motion sick during the pod race, and my mom had to take me to the bathroom, and I revisited my popcorn for like 20 minutes.
Oh no.
And I missed most of the second half of the movie, and I made it back in, and I just remember watching like the big epic ending where it's like the lightsaber fight and the space battle and the battle in Theed. And I remember standing in the aisleway for the movie theater, like not even in the seat area, and I was watching it, and anytime it went to the space battle, my dad had to like yank on the back of my shirt and pull me away from the screen, and I wasn't allowed to watch the space battle in case I got sick again.
Yeah.
And so anyway, whenever people complain about the prequels, I'm like, hey, the Phantom Menace literally made me vomit, and I still liked it. So I don't know what your problem is.
That's a great argument right there. Yeah, no, it's crazy that it's going to be 20 years for Phantom Menace, and then I'm assuming once it's 20 years for Attack of the Clones, we're going to get a few, things related to Attack of the Clones too. Although we are already getting some pretty cool comics that cover the entire saga, the Age of comics.
Yes, those look really good.
Yeah, and I read the Qui-Gon. That's what sparked my love of Qui-Gon recently, was because of the Qui-Gon one. So I'm very excited for those. Have you gotten a chance to read the Qui-Gon one yet?
I haven't. My problem with comics is I tend to grab them in trade. Mm-hmm. So I will read, like I'll pick up a single issue if it's something where I'm just really excited. Like I bought Kevin Scott's Tales from Vader's Castle. Because I wanted to read those around Halloween. But usually I'm a wait for trade person, just because if I'm already buying like every book as it comes out, it's something had to give. But I've been following them as they came out, and I'm just really excited for the scope. I love the idea of it. I love that it's hitting like all these major points, and some of them are pretty major characters, but I like that a lot of them are some overlooked kind of characters. I'm sure my site partner, Professor Django, I'm sure is already sizing up the Jango Fett issue.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited for Jango Fett. I'm excited for most of the villains, that are connected to it. Darth Maul is going to be getting more love, which of course he's got an abundance of it.
He deserves so much more.
He deserves it, absolutely. So now, speaking of Darth Maul, I'm going to segue here to kind of one of a big topic that I wanted to discuss with you. So Darth Maul appeared in Solo, and I was very surprised that happened. Because I've always had this theory, and I'm going to make a video on it one day. One day, I swear. And the theory goes that although in canon there is no longer a hierarchy of canon, which, in case you didn't know, in Legends there or in the old expanded universe there was a hierarchy of canon. How did it go? Was it like
it was George Lucas canon?
Yes.
And like that could not be overwritten no matter what. And then for a long time, the next level I think was just called continuity canon, which made no sense. It was a really dumb name, but that was just like most of the books, most of the comics. And then when Clone Wars came out, they created one between that was television canon. And then there was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like ambiguously canon stuff. So like the early Marvel comics.
Yeah, I think it was secondary canon.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. Secondary canon.
And then there was just non-canon at the bottom.
Yep. So like infinities or whatever. And I do not miss having to explain that to people all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I always remember how a bit confusing that could get. But so to my theory, I've always considered that there was still a pseudo hierarchy of canon that exists. And by that, I mean everything is still canon.
Right.
Like, from the short stories to the comics to the movies, everything is still on one canon. But where they decide to put their most quote unquote important stories, that's where it depends. And so and usually when a specific something is in a level, it depends on which other level it connects to. I need to really draw it out. But it's essentially my thought process was this. If there's something that lives in the animation world, it's a bit harder for it to get transferred over to the film world.
Right.
Because you're going to have to explain so many things, that's why, although I think it would be rad as hell if we had an Ahsoka movie.
Right.
I don't know how that would go in order to explain everything Ahsoka to people.
Right. You would almost have to like either make it before we saw her in the Clone Wars, so when she was really young, or you would have to have one bomb diggity like scroll that I can't even imagine to explain. Exactly.
It really depends on where you would need to place like in the timeline this movie. But I have been pleasantly surprised at what Lucasfilm has been doing with the whole Maul thing. I'm sure there are still a lot of people that were like, what the hell is Maul doing alive, and what the hell is but there's been an abundance of articles to catch people up on the internet. Besides that, also Saw Gerrera himself comes from the Clone Wars, so I really like the blurring of those lines. Have you noticed kind of what I'm talking about though?
No, I have. I thought Saw was a good opening salvo, because the good thing about Saw and Rogue One is you didn't actually need to watch the Clone Wars to get it.
Absolutely.
And it was more of a cool connection. It really felt more like they had a character and they realized that his backstory could work with this other character, and they're like, why the heck not? Maul was a bit bolder. And I remember, the like live from the premiere live streams that StarWars.com does. I remember I was watching that, and several people were like, you just got to wait to the end of Solo, because like the end of Solo makes it worth it. And I'm like, what? How could Solo end where everyone's talking about the end of Solo? Like, was Han a clone the whole time? Like, what are we talking about? And then I saw the end of Solo, and I'm like, oh, that's what they meant. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that was definitely one. Although it's funny enough, I talked to some of my friends who saw it who like the movies, but like they'll see them in theaters and then maybe watch them if they're on, but they don't watch. And they saw Maul and they just assumed that it was just another of Maul's species that could also use the Force, and they were super fine with it.
Yeah.
So I think the obsessive fans like us forget how maybe you really don't need to know all of these things.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's okay if you don't.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's just one of the biggest examples, I think, of my hierarchy idea and how it blurs the lines between that. I think that's very cool. And in terms of the books and comics, I think those are very much more free because they reference each other quite a bit, I think. Ray Sloan appearing in the Canon comic. That's a big one that I personally really enjoyed. And television has been really rocking it in its references to a lot of the comics and the books. Just the fact that we get a lot of mentions in Resistance about the Battle of Jakku.
Right.
So exciting. Everything about the Battle of Jakku is really some of my favorite stuff. So I think that's really, really exciting. Just all these connections that Canon is currently doing.
And I've been really enjoying that. And I think too, I like a lot of the connections where they've not adapted and not kept everything, but they've been slowly pulling in things from Legends. And I remember during the third season of the Clone Wars when Legends wasn't Legends yet. And so Clone Wars still fit in with all of the old canon, and they brought in the Night Sisters. And I was really, really excited to see Night Sisters how they should be and not as they were in courtship of Princess Leia. And it was really exciting. And I think it's so ironic now because I remember when Clone Wars came out, a lot of people hated the Clone Wars because it was quote unquote wrecking canon, and it was breaking canon, and it was, Even Peel, or however you pronounce his name, had like 2 different deaths now and all of this stuff. But now it's almost like this weird nature preserve where Night Sisters wouldn't still be canon if it wasn't for the Clone Wars.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like this weird thing where like everyone hated it, and now everyone wants Dave Filoni to do everything in Star Wars, apparently. Which, I mean, I wouldn't mind, but I just think it's so ironic because he was not well received at first. But even with that, I think I know what you mean about the levels, because it's always cool when they reference stuff, or like Luke's compass in The Last Jedi was added because it's in the story campaign for Battlefront 2. And it's something so small, something so innocuous that doesn't really derail the story of The Last Jedi. And you don't need to know the purpose of the compass because you might not even notice the compass when you're watching the movie. But just to know that it's there. Or one of the stories in Legends of Luke Skywalker really seems to reference some scenes with Luke on Octo. But I think at the end of the day, I think it would be foolish to think that these levels don't exist. Because if J.J. Abrams is making Episode 9, and in order to make a good movie that makes sense and connect a storyline, in order to do that, if he has to do something that undoes something in the Aftermath trilogy, they're not going to say, no, JJ, you can't, you can't fix your $200 million movie because page 87 of Life Debt says this. So at the end of the day, the thing that is costing the most money to make is still going to be the most canon.
Absolutely.
And that's just unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast. But I think they've been way more considerate than they necessarily need to be. And I think the inclusion of more and more stuff from animation is, I mean, it started 10 years ago. You have kids who were 8 years old watching the Clone Wars who are 18 now, and they watch the Clone Wars. You don't have to explain it to them. And I think as we all get older and we make more material, it's going to happen because their fan base is going to become less and less the people who were there in 1977 when the dinosaurs walked the earth. Exactly. And it's going to be people who are even younger than us, and soon we'll be phased out, and it'll be the next generation's kids.
Yep.
And that's just how it's going to go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with everything that you say 100%. No, I think that was an excellent note to really end the discussion on Canon. YB, thank you so much for coming by, sitting down, and discussing Canon with me. It's been a lot of fun.
No problem.
So this is going to be the end of the interview. So I'm going to say, YB, is there anything you want to promote? Is there anything you are working on right now that maybe we should be excited for?
We just at Port Haven launched a Discord that's primarily a Star Wars discussion-based Discord. It's not just here's when my video went up, even though that's there too.
Yeah.
But it's a place where you can kind of talk about new stuff. Professor Django, my site partner, and I are working through the new Jedi Order, so it's a lot of Legends stuff that we're really excited about. And I've got a couple of series coming down the line. I'm hoping to do some stuff on discussing redemption in Star Wars.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I'm really now that I'm done making Resistance reviews for a while, that's going to kind of become my next focus, and I'm really excited to play around with that.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much. I look forward to that redemption videos especially. So, all right, YB, thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
Good talking to you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the first installment of this series. I plan on doing more with it in the future, but for now, I just want to spread and promote as much positivity as I can. I'll see you next week, and may the Force be with you.